President Jacob Zuma's suitability to continue leading the ANC, it's under discussion at the party's NEC meeting that continues today. Let's unpack much of what is expected to unfold in the next 24 hours. In studio with me, political analyst Karima Brown. Karima, no one could have prepared for the kind of weekend that this has been with the NEC meeting. And suddenly you wake up on Monday morning and there are questions, will President Jacob Zuma go today? Is that a probability at this stage?
Well, I think for starters, it's not quite a surprise. Those of us who have been watching the campaign inside the ANC against President Zuma, have anticipated this. If you look back at the vote of no confidence that was tried by the DA a few weeks ago, we know that the president had to put in a personal appearance at the caucus, even though he had the numbers. And it was clear then already that rebellion inside the ANC was brewing. But you're right, Cathy, the NEC was a safe space for President Jacob Zuma for a long time. That is no longer the case. The fact that the meeting had to continue till today gives you an indication of just how divided the ANC is, and the fact that opposition toward President Zuma's rule inside the highest decision-making body inside the organization is growing. So the motion of no confidence was tabled by Tourism Minister Derek Hanekom on Saturday. There were discussions. We had reports that some NEC members who weren't at the meeting had been asked to come back, and they returned yesterday. And by the end of yesterday, it was clear that the discussions were far from over. And now the key issue, of course, is whether the motion is going to go down to a vote. There's been a lot of speculation on social media. Some of the pro-Zuma forces trying to suggest that the vote has already been cast, and we know, of course, that is factually incorrect. The meeting reconvenes this morning, and by the last count yesterday, some 20 or so odd NEC members out of that 88 or so members still needed to speak on the issue. And the question of whether they are going to vote and whether there's a secret ballot is still to be decided. Already indications are that key ministers that have come out batting for President Zuma includes Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, rather she's the AU chair, commission chair. We know that Fikile Mbalula has argued against President Zuma's removal, so has Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba. Others who've kind of ramped up the campaign against him include Minister for Science and Technology and Innovation, Naledi Pandor, also Jackson Mthembu, the Chief Whip of the ANC in Parliament, and of course Public Works Minister Thulas Nxesi, and Aaron Motsoaledi, the Health Minister. So as you can see, Cathy, the kind of factions, if you like, beginning to stack up. What is clear is that middle ground in the ANC is what is going to decide the day. So it's going to be a long day. Obviously, we're going to be watching reports coming out there, but President Zuma very clearly on the back foot.
Karima, let's explore this issue of the SACP link, especially within that grouping that is speaking out against President and supporting this motion for him to step down. Many of them have been speculated that they for months held this view. What does it mean now, the fact that they've publicly put themselves out there, not just for their standing within the SACP, but also for their positions as cabinet ministers post whatever happens today, especially if they don't succeed?
Well, I think President Zuma, as you know, has the prerogative to reshuffle his cabinet here. People serve at his pleasure. The problem for President Jacob Zuma is that whilst he can play the reshuffle card, because it's his prerogative, he can do nothing about the composition of the National Executive Committee. That committee is elected at the ANC's elective conference. So let's assume President Zuma plays the card of a reshuffle and gets rid of his opponents, people like Thulas Nxesi, the Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande. They remain NEC members. Between now and December, President Zuma has to face them every month in the organization. That's an original structure with constitutional powers. To recall the president, we have a party political system. The ANC decides who it deploys to the state, including the state president, and gives instructions to its caucus. But let's go even further. So presumably all these ministers now become members of parliament. They can no longer be in the cabinet. What they can do, of course, is if the opposition institutes another vote of no confidence, they can vote with them. And the ANC MPs don't even have to do so en masse. You need a couple of them to break ranks. So President Zuma really ring-fenced one way or the other, irrespective of the outcome of today. He's literally running out of road, Cathy.
Where to from here on, Karima? We've had this discussion about the president potentially going for a long time. Nothing has come of those discussions as yet. What makes it very different this time around? And of course, there's the obvious thing of the fact that the NEC is discussing it as a motion. But what else around? What has changed within the circumstances significantly that gives them more prospects of success than they have had before?
I think the reason why some people are surprised is because they wanted to look at the removal of Jacob Zuma as an event, one definitive event. And I've argued that it's a process, that he is very rooted, and that what you needed was to look at who is burrowing. And as we've been speaking on this platform, we've been speaking about how the president is being contested in all the structures of the African National Congress, in the branches, in the caucus in parliament, in the NWC, and even in the top officials. They are not united on this matter. What is really interesting is that, of course, the NEC, because of its decision-making powers, because of its power, have the ability to recall him, like they did with former President Thabo Mbeki. So this is a culmination of a series of engagements. Let's, for example, look at the initial response to the stalwarts. The ANC officials fobbed it off. And yet, in the last 7 days, they've met with the stalwarts twice. So clearly, the composition of those stalwarts, ranging from the former head of the SANDF, General Sphiwe Nyanda, to writer and cultural activist Mongani Walisiroti, to people like Mavuso Msimang, a very senior DG who served at the behest of several ministers in several cabinets of the democratic South Africa. If you look at that composition, then you can begin to feel the influence of those people. And of course, they were never alone. There were people inside the organization. Let's take a look at Jackson Mthembu's critique of President Zuma. After the devastating defeat that the ANC suffered in the municipal elections, he raised the question of taking collective responsibility. Remember, he called for all of the leadership to step down. He raised that at the NEC. So the seeds were there. People were, in fact, beginning to argue. What you're seeing at this NEC meeting is almost a culmination of all of those efforts. That is not even to speak about the civil society initiatives, the Save South Africa campaign, which was launched last week, where a motion of no confidence was symbolically and publicly put. Of course, they are planning to take the demands to the Speaker. So this is neither sudden nor a surprise. It is the calculated efforts of those in opposition to President Zuma inside the ANC that are carefully laying out their plans. And I think that President Zuma has, in a very real way, been outflanked.
Well, I think it's going to be an interesting 24 hours, Karima Brown, and I'm sure you're going to have the very latest of everything as it unfolds. Political analyst Karima Brown in studio with me.